You have a variety of subjects, including animals, flowers, and people. How do you choose what to capture? And do you have a favorite subject or one that you realize you lean towards more?
Well, it's the feeling. It's as if there's a whole story and an expression. So whether even with a tree, I can feel that. So I feel like whatever I'm doing, I'm doing a portrait of it, and I want to find out what is the true nature of it. I think that's what I'm looking for because my goal is to present that as a way of understanding and oblique and as indirect as this kind of art is, that I'm hoping to make some kind of understanding. I'm hoping to bring about, a little bit more people getting along better with each other. So it's very indirect. It's more direct, when I with the things that I've been writing, but this is very indirect because it's no way of knowing if it works. But so it's whatever really seems to be provocative in the general sense of the word, not in the naughty or outlandish sense of the word, but just that really, really reaches and captures. And there can be, I'm sure that you've seen it in an animal. You can see it in an animal's face that you can tell whether they're happy or sad or how they're feeling, and even in their sleep. That both dogs, most of us are more
Mhm.
familiar with dogs or cats, and I can see their expressions and their movements in their sleep. So it's that's what it is. There are rare exceptions. So like there are people that, especially in my family, that I want to hold on to a certain either moment in their life or moment in our life together. So like a photograph I did of almost all my photographs are candid. It's really, really rare that I'll stage anything that candid. And I actually only started cropping recently. I used to just, do the uncropped. It wasn't, but it was a sunny day, and my granddaughter didn't have I had given her my straw hat, and we were at a beach on Staten Island with my youngest son and his family, and it was a beach that we'd spent a lot of time on, and that had been wiped out by Sandy, but then it was restored. So it was very meaningful for all of us to be there. And then we went to a little restaurant not far away afterward for dinner. And then my granddaughter is just looking out the window. And she's looking out the window, and she's here she is in around 20. And it's as if there's this hope in the future, but there's also the feeling, at least for me, of the past of we had just been to this place that's important to the family. She had known that place since she was a very little girl, and she's wearing a hat that had been mine. So and just the look on her face for me captured those those different time periods all at once. So I had showed that photograph, and now I'm working on a more traditional portrait of her. Generally speaking, what I'm doing now is a little bit less traditional. But a more traditional one of her. So it's not so much what do I choose, it's what chooses me. And I sometimes feel that they're reaching out, it's even if it's a plant that they're reaching out. Okay.
In a lot of your art, you tend to achieve a middle ground of sort of emotional and literal details.
Mhm.
Some of your art tends to be more painted to show feelings, while others are more direct. I was wondering two things. How do you decide how literal you're going to be, or is it what the painting is feeling like? And secondly, how do you accomplish this?
Well, for the what, I do a lot of talking with the painting. And occasionally I might start out with a literal because I have more emotional distance. So the Alice Austin copy that I did I just basically, translated her photograph into a watercolor. I had an emotional connection from a family of five. They're like five kids or something there, and they're on rocks. They're on Staten Island where I grew up, and they're on the water, which I'm familiar with. And but there's nothing immediate there, and so that was literal. I also wanted to honor the photographer in a slightly looser way. So there was that. I used to do more literal work than I do now. And the more closer it is, the more abstract, like this one in the show called Her Dress. And when I was a very little girl, my mother had a dress I absolutely loved. It had bumblebees. The dress was stripes with bumblebees flying all over it. Oh, I just love that dress. Because when you're little, you look straight ahead, you're looking at the dress, you know. And then after she died, I thought about that dress. And it could not be literal because it's too close. And so then I that became very abstract. I broke there were at least, you know, five predecessors to the one that's in the show.
Do you have anything left to say about that question?
Oh, oh,
Or are we good because
yes,
we're recording off? I don't blame you.
that's okay. So basically means that I'm more distanced from it emotionally, and because I also do botanical illustrations every year for a journal, and those are quite literal, with rare exceptions. And then the more figurative, the more abstract it is, the closer it is to me emotionally. That's why the her dress is an example of that. But as to how, so always when it's abstract, usually when it's literal, I'm going to do thumbnails. So here's an example of the semi abstract one that I've recently been working on. So that's an example of thumbnails. Here are some more. I don't know if you can see them. So I just look. Sometimes I'll use different sizes if I think of different kinds of paper that I want to work on, and then to get the idea of my composition. So for literal, I'm going to be doing a very careful drawing. The more detailed, the more careful the drawing. So the Alice Austin one was a very careful drawing. I'm pretty good at eyeing things out, so I don't do much measurement. And then I will, with a literal, then I'm more apt to be working in layers and more slowly. And there's going to be a smaller percentage of the wet technique because I want more control. I might even use hot pressed paper instead of the cold pressed because my paint is a little bit thicker usually. But for the abstract, then it's going to be the 300, the weight that I prefer, possibly rough. And I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to be doing it wetter. And while I have my thumbnail, it's rare that I have anything on paper. I might make some kind of marks to give me an idea of direction, but usually it's just the paint. It's just the paint. And in this especially, I'm talking in both situations, I'm talking to the painting. But in this one especially, because the painting itself is going to be guiding me as to what I'm going to be doing next. And it's not unusual for me to spend up to 2 weeks on an abstract painting, trying to get the right kind of depth, the right texture, the right movement, the right direction. I'm also trying to look for a direction that's going to give the viewer some kind of, ideally, an uplifting, positive kind of feeling. So this is all going on in my head. And then I'm also usually working on things simultaneously. So the wetter something is, the more simultaneous pieces that I'm doing. And because one part is drying, I'm working on the other parts. I do up to seven. It's usually like 3, maybe 4, but I've done up to seven of these. And one time I was doing I was trying to show reflection on the Hudson River. And what I was doing was so wet, I had to do it in the shower. So that's basically my how. And for if it's really for the most abstract, I'm working from memory. And then for the literal, it's usually one or maybe more photographs of mine, in Alice Austin's case, in her photograph. So
The last question that I have, is there anything that you are working on recently or hope to start working on in the future?
yeah, I find kind of two directions. I like doing, in addition to doing simultaneous things at the same thing. I also like to be working on different kinds of projects at the same time. So I used to do quite a bit of portraiture years ago. You know, even had some commissions. Then commissions turned into landscape with figures, and so I'm thinking of getting back into that because I have two already started. The one little one I explained to you, and then one that's not much beyond the drawing stage of her younger sister as a child. But I have her in a Gainsborough outfit, sitting on a log. And this is this one I did a lot of research on in terms of helping people understand the history of why coal is in West Virginia. And because all the trees were cut down, people didn't think of what's going to happen if all the trees are cut down. And so she's representing, and because that period is around the time period of when the trees were cutting down. So there are hardly any trees in the forest behind her. And then you're looking down the steep hill, and then you see the river with a barge carrying the wood away. And then there were all these little houses that getting the wood ready to go down. So that immediately predates the coal. So that's my social activism kind of thing. So, but then the other side is I'm very satisfied, and I'm so happy that you chose the hairdress. So I started a sequel to that on a suit that my mother had. So I'm we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be sequel. We'll see. We'll see. Thanks very much for that question.
Of course. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate being able to talk to you about your past, your process, and your future. And we look forward to having your art in the exhibition Between Stillness and Surge on October 27th, 2005 to January 9th, 2006. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Kelly. It was an honor and a treat and a pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you for dealing with the technical difficulties.
It happens. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why we have
Have a
art.
nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.